What's up, guys? It's Tyler. Another week, another blue car video. Today, we are doing a much requested video, something that I've been putting off for too long just because it is a bit of work, but it is one of the most important mods you can do to a Supercharged LSJ, and that is gonna be your dual pass end plate and option B kit. I've got quite a bit of stuff here. I'm also doing some of our silicone heat exchanger hoses, which is a sweet kit and we don't sell enough of. These are really awesome and help replace your crusty, old, worn hoses. So we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. This may be a two-part video. We'll let Eric the great decide on the editing side. So we've got dual pass end plate, upgraded laminova rings. That's something. We will go over how to remove everything, clean your laminova cores, explain the whole process along the way. It is a bit daunting, and I can definitely see why this is a requested video, because before I had done it, I was a little intimidated as well. So we'll get started and let me know what you guys think. So today we are obviously working all under the engine bay. We're gonna try and get some good shots for you guys. It is a little cramped, but like I said, this install, it's not an overly difficult one. It's just going to take a lot of time. So obviously you have to remove the blower, you have to remove the intake manifold for the dual pass install. That's one of the biggest things. It can be a little tricky. If you've never done it, that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're going to go over, and hopefully I don't tug too many wires too hard like that one guy said in the last video. So we're going to get started. Step one is going to be getting the blower ready to remove. So you're going to have to take off some vacuum lines, some sensors, unplug some things, deal with the belt, go over my methods. There might be better methods, but you know. So let's get started. Now that I've got my injector cover that a customer graciously sent me, which is awesome. This injector cover, these bolts, I always only do them by hand, because they like to strip, especially these ones too. If you've never taken those off and they're stock, they'll probably strip, because these torque bits, I don't know whose decision that was to use those. So we'll get that off, and then we're gonna start working on all the various connections on the Supercharger. So you've got your evap line here, which those are easy push connects. Loosen those up, take that guy off. Then you've got your main brake booster line here. Push that from the bottom. Pull that up and off. We don't need to take our intake off, but we do need to at least remove the coupler, or loosen up the coupler so we can get at it. So you've got your Supercharger inlet pressure sensor. Take that one off. You've got your intercooler fill tee here that you'll want to loosen up. 2 10 mils. And when we're putting everything back together, we're gonna be installing some of our silicone heat exchanger hoses. So we'll go over the routing and all that. That is one thing that's kind of a mystery to many people, is how the Supercharger coolant system is routed. And one thing that many people don't know, which, you know, is fair, your Supercharger intercooler system and your regular engine coolant are two separate systems here. So when you're diagnosing issues, you know, they, from the factory, both use DexCool. So, you know, you have to watch out for that. But most of the time, anything that's going through your fill neck here, that's obviously the Supercharger system. Your coolant system for the engine is totally separate. Hopefully once we get all this off, I can explain a little better how the routing goes, how the pump works. Like we always say, make sure your intercooler pump works before you're doing any of these mods. That is priority number one, because it's probably dead or it's wired backwards if it's the first couple of years. Make sure that's functional. So I got that off. Now your boost bypass valve here is connected to the solenoid up top. Go ahead and remove that line. You can leave that attached. So from here, I am going to work on the belt. So your tensioner on the LSJ is this kind of piston shaped device there. And hopefully yours isn't seized, because I've seen a lot of them that are seized. But easiest way to get the belt off, and it's gonna be tight, is either take a 15 mil and put it on the nub on the top, or you may end up needing a 9/16 and pound it down onto that nub and then work that leverage. So I'm gonna try with a 15 mil here first. There's a nub right on the top of the tensioner. You'll put that on and you can see you move your belt there. So push it to the side. Go as far as you can. And get your belt off. Now we make an upgraded tensioner that I would highly recommend. It makes things like this a lot easier. I haven't touched it because I'm still on the stock pulley. Make sure to watch your fingers too. If you're getting tired from pushing down on that, you don't want that snapping back and getting your fingers stuck in the belt. That sucks. There we go. Belt is off the blower. So leave that right there. I personally wouldn't take it off of the tensioner just so you don't have to deal with routing the whole belt again. We will need to eventually remove the alternator to get to that one bolt on the intake manifold. That one kind of sucks, so we'll get there when we get there. All right, next up we have the 4 bolts that hold the supercharger on. All right, so they are 6 mil hex. Loosen them on up. Now I did have my blower off a month or 2 ago, so they're pretty easy for me. They may be a little more difficult for you. If you're planning on doing this, you may want to pick up our supercharger replacement bolts. They're nice stainless steel. I do need an actual Allen wrench to get to this top one. Now you can remove the fuel rail. I probably will end up doing that when I do the intake manifold, but for now, I'm leaving it there. One thing that you don't want to do is leave your belt on first and then take the bolts off, because you'll end up shifting the whole thing and you probably could bend one of the dowels on the intake manifold, and you don't want that because these intake manifolds are no longer produced. So if you break it, they're getting hard to find. Supercharger's loose. I'm gonna tip it up so I can hopefully get to this throttle body plug a little easier. Go. One benefit of having small hands. All right, tuck the intake down. Pull up on the supercharger. Take the bolts out before I lose them. Now you just gotta finagle it up and out. Whew. I always forget how heavy these things are. There we go. Blower's out. All right, now that we've got the blower off, this is where the fun begins. So this is your supercharger intake manifold, and we're gonna show you how to remove it. Before I go through that, I guess one thing that I should explain, because not everyone knows, is gonna be how this intake manifold works. So most modern turbocharged cars are all air to air. That's a concept that's pretty easy to grasp. They use a front mount intercooler. The air that's coming out of the turbo goes through, air passes through the intercooler, cools it down, goes into your intake. On these blower cars, it's air to water. So what that means is there's water or coolant flowing through the system that then goes through a heat exchanger. Now stock, you have your stock one, which is quite thin, wedged in between your AC condenser and your radiator. We make a couple upgrades. You have your stock replacement, that's all aluminum. That's nice if it's just a stock car, you want to keep stock, I get that. That one goes in the stock location. We've got our Stealth, which I installed on this car and I would recommend to everyone with a Cobalt. That mounts up front, gets it out of that sandwich of the heat, and it is very effective. Adds a lot of coolant capacity, which helps a lot, and it also brings it forward. Then we have our stage 3 heat exchanger, which mounts to the crash bar. Now that one is a solid upgrade as well. Again, adds coolant capacity. I would pair that with a Stealth if you're gonna do it. Redline guys, we're working on a Stealth for you. Hopefully we can get that nailed down by next year, but finding time's tough. So the stock manifold is what is referred to as a quad pass. So when the coolant comes out of the pump and goes up into the intake manifold here, it passes through 4 times. So there's laminova cores in there. We'll take those out, we'll get those clean. What those do is they transfer heat from the intake charge through the coolant. So like I said, stock is quad pass. It goes in, out, out, in, I don't know. It goes through 4 times. There's 4 cores. So yeah, in, out, and then down to your heat exchanger. Our ZZP dual pass, what that does, you flip 2 of the cores and then it goes into and then out 2. Now what that does is it means it spends less time exposed to the heat. It draws heat out of that coolant quicker, which keeps things cool. IAT2s are a huge problem on blower cars, and this is one of the most essential mods that you can do. So like I said, recommended to everybody. Let's get cracking on this intake manifold. Now, ideally, you want to do all your cooling mods at the same time. I've said this before, you know, we all love buying parts and getting new parts. They're exciting, I get it. But the best way to do it is save up, get all the parts for the system you're working on, whether it be exhaust, supercharger cooling system, etc., and do them all at once. So I've already done the Stealth, meaning it's got fresh coolant in it. I don't want to have to drain all that, so I'm not going to. We're going to lose a little coolant doing this, but we need to first disconnect the hoses from the stock end plate, and then we'll get the manifold off, and then we'll get to cracking there. So I need to grab my handy clamp remover. Now, your stock hoses are going to be really hard to get off because they've likely been on there for years and years and years. So what you want to try and do is kind of break that seal there. Oh, hey. Oh, the booger hook. Thanks, Al. Al's booger hook tool. Comes in handy. So now that I got this moving, should pop off there, and there goes some coolant. Good thing I put down the mat beforehand. All right, let's see if I can get this on the other clamp. Oh. Woo. There we go. Okay, now that that struggle's over, we'll continue. I think it's funny that people who watch laugh at me struggling, but I'm not a professional. I think one of the things that I'm trying to show you guys is that you don't need to be. You don't need to be a professional mechanic to do most of these mods. I've had no formal training. I had shop class in high school. I'm just a silly kid trying to have fun. Okay, so we have MAP sensor unplugged. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts up top, and then there's one 15 mil that's down below. That thing is a pain, but we got to do it. Some people have said that you can get at it with the alternator on, but unless you're working with even babier hands than I do not believe that that is the truth. So I am going to go unhook my battery, my negative battery terminal. We'll get this alternator loose so we can pull it off, get at that bolt first, and then we'll work at the top ones because those are easy. Reason I recommend disconnecting your negative battery terminal, because you're working with some of the main power wires on the alternator. You don't want to get zapped. That's not fun. I've done that before. Gets you real tingly, but not in a good way. All right, disconnected, safe. All right, so my belt is off the alternator here. Now you've got 3 15 mils for this. There's one at the bottom, 2 up top. We'll quick undo those. We'll have to get at the dipstick mounting bolt. You'll have to get that off. I'm gonna undo our coolant temp sensor up here and the alternator plug. Okay, move that off to the side there. Grab the old Milwaukee. Get these long boys out. Okay, alternator is free. So you're gonna wanna drop that down. All right, and there's that bolt. So this one, we won't really be able to show you on camera because it's far down in there, but it is there. That wiring harness is gonna be clipped to your dipstick tube mounting point. So you'll wanna pop that off. Okay, got that off. Then it's gonna be a 10 mil on the dipstick tube. That is out. Now to think of the best way to get at this, I'm gonna go with a deep 15, break it loose with a ratchet, and then use the Milwaukee to get her off. It's gonna be near the rear of the manifold. Bottom bolt out. Now we have dipstick free, all connections free over there. Now we just need our 10 mils. I'm gonna start with outside ones. Break those loose. Go up top. Short extension. And those front boys. There we go. They're all loose. Let's zip them off. Now sometimes these two front ones, the studs may come out as well. That's fine. Now that we are freed up, we're loosened, I'm gonna crack these loose and get those studs out of there. All right, we've got E7, or you can take, I believe, a really tight 6.6 mil, or maybe 5.5, and get those off. And now, we're totally free. Oh, old crusty. There she is. I'm definitely gonna give this thing a clean because, well, you can see how dirty that is. All right, so the intake manifold, put it through the bath, clean it up a little bit. Oh, we got some leakage there. All right, so what we're concentrating on here is the end plate. So you can see your stock end plate has 2 orifices. The dual pass has 3. So like I said, instead of going in, out, it goes in, 2, out 2. So much more efficient. These are all 10 mils. What you will want to note is your bypass O-ring sits in here. You will need to transfer that over to your new one. So I am gonna pop this on its side, break all these loose, and whip them off. Probably gonna have some spillage getting this off. So then once you're freed up, just wanna kind of gently pry it off. Okay, there we go. Now that we've got the end plate off, I want you guys to take a look here. So you can see we've got 2 facing one way, 2 facing the other way. What you're gonna do then is take these 2 cores and basically flip-flop them. So you'll take this one out, flip it around, put it back in, take this one out, flip it around, put it back in. These O-rings are the Laminova upgraded O-rings that we sell, or should I say that's what I'm gonna be replacing them with. So I'm gonna remove those. Now one thing that you really wanna pay attention to and you don't wanna lose are these little brass or copper washers. So they go a certain way. It's the big flat one first, then the taller one. Make sure you don't lose those or bend them up. And set them off to the side. Now this is the trickiest part, is gonna be removing these laminovas and keeping them intact. So the whole intake manifold's aluminum and the laminovas are even softer aluminum. And when you're pulling them out, they're very, very easy to get damaged. You can see around here how it's a perfect circle. This, you can almost squish it by hand. So you don't want to go yanking on these just with vice grips or whatever to get them out. There's kind of a method to the madness. And hopefully these ones aren't too hard to get out. One thing that John Powell taught me via Facebook was if you do have a lot of trouble getting them out, put the manifold in some boiling or super hot water for a little while. That can free them up. If you do so, make sure you remove your MAP sensor and your PCV valve and all your O-rings and all that. Okay, so what you can first do is see if you can get them by hand, wiggle them back and forth, and clearly with this one, that's not going to be the case. So I've got a worm drive clamp, and then I'm going to grab another shop rag and use it to protect this. So size this up. Get it kind of close. That's when you'll want to put your rag on. And tighten it down. Like I said, these are really soft. I'm not exaggerating. And these are fully discontinued. You'd be hard pressed to find a good set without buying a whole intake manifold. All right, so there I can feel it's nice and tight. What I'm gonna do then is take a pair of pliers and grab that and see if I can work it out. Now that's all right that it popped off. You don't want it too tight. So just a hair tighter. Shoot. There we go. So I had to abandon the towel, but I made sure not to smush. One actually got smushed just a little bit where the hump is there, so I'll leave that be. All right, so that's what your laminovas look like. They're really ugly, they're really weird, but that's what keeps your car cool. So I'm gonna take off my O-rings, take off my brass pieces, and I'm gonna set this aside to get the rest of them out. Yep. We are back. I gave the laminovas a quick brake clean bath. All you gotta do is spray them down, get any of that oil residue off of there. Basically, if you have debris on these, they work like radiator fins. So, you know, the more debris you have on them, the less efficient they're gonna be. So just cleaning them up can help quite a bit. Okay, now reassembly. We're going back in. So remember I said make note of the washers here. You're gonna put washers on each end, and then you're gonna put your upgraded O-rings or the original O-rings back on. You're gonna wanna get that snug and tight there. On each end. Okay. I don't know, because I can't remember 5 minutes ago if I mentioned this, but these laminova cores you cannot get them new, and to find used ones in good condition is quite difficult. I brought a backup set just in case I ruin these, because again, I hoard Ecotech parts. We're fully assembled. So one thing that these laminova O-rings are often used for is the stock ones can crack, they can go bad. When these O-rings crack, you'll get coolant in your intake. So if you say, I don't know, park the car over the winter and go and fire it up in the spring and you've just got smoke. You've got smoke billowing out, you don't know what's wrong, pull your blower, or if you're an entry-level car, pull your adapter plate and look down in there. If you've got a bunch of coolant, 99% of the time it's gonna be your O-rings are bad. Replace those, you'll be good to go. Now, if you live somewhere warm and can run water through the system, that's great. If you live somewhere north and you run water through your intercooler system, make sure to drain it before the winter, because if that gets in here and freezes and expands, cracks, that's no good. So your reassembly is where you're gonna change things over stock. So stock you had the open one, closed off, open, closed off. So now we're gonna go open on the top and bottom and the closed off end in the centers. So you'll see on the laminova here, you have this groove that's wide and this groove that's skinny. The wide groove, you're gonna want to match up with the slots here in the intake manifold where the air passes through. So when you're putting them back together, slide them in like that, and hopefully they'll go in nice and easy. I'm gonna grab a little dielectric grease and grease up the O-rings. Okay, I'm gonna line up the lines there and slide it on in. When you get to the end, you'll kind of feel it click. Not a good noise. I don't like that noise. All right, we are locked in. Cool. So our next step is going to be installing the actual end plate. You will need to reuse this gasket. I don't know if these ones are made anymore. I'm going to guess probably not. But I'm gonna try and clean this one up a little bit now that the shape is totally gone. You're gonna wanna lay it in the groove here. That's probably the easiest one I've ever done. Lay it in there nice and easy. Okay, I'm gonna add a dab of dielectric on the O-rings on this other side. And you know guys, if you're ever stuck doing this, shoot me an email. I've done it a couple times. I'm no expert like I said, but I can usually break things down pretty easy. Layman terms, like I would like to say. Okay, so your end plate's gonna go right on top. It is going to be tight. You'll get it centered on those O-rings. Kind of work it on there. Pop your bolts back in. Okay. So I'm going to work around to get this seated. But you don't want to put too much stress on one end or the other. So I'm going to go 4 corners till they start to snug down. Then move to the middle one. Working your way down. On those O-rings. like mentioned, this is aluminum. It is soft. No need to go Hulk, but you want to make sure you don't have any leaks. So I'm just gonna make sure these are tight. And there you have it. Your dual pass is installed. You'll want to look around the edge. Make sure that it looks like it's sitting nice and flush. Looks like we should be good. Want to tighten these two. And get that one. All right, cool. There we go. We are good. Now time to go back in the car. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. This is the end of part 1 of the video. Part 2 will be coming shortly. That'll be reinstallation, getting the lines ran, everything, getting the option B set up. So hope you enjoyed this first part. We knew this video was gonna be a little longer, so that's why we're splitting it into 2. Don't worry, the second half is coming very soon. Let me know what you thought. We'll catch you next time.